We're here with Klamath County Commissioner candidate Rejeana Jackson. Rejeana, thank you for coming in. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Matt.
I want to start by just giving you a chance to tell your story. Who are you and what has led you to this point?
Okay, great. I was raised here in Klamath County, in Klamath Falls. We moved here in about 1986. I went to Roosevelt and Ponderosa, a little stint at Mills, and then graduated from KU in 1998. I've always been interested in politics. That started with the relationship I had with my father. He was a conservative, and we didn't really talk very much, but we could always talk about politics. And so that's kind of where my interest in politics started, and then I kind of followed that through my life. And then, so after I graduated from high school here in 98, I went to college at Pepperdine University in Malibu, California, and that's where I met my husband. I graduated with a degree in organizational communications. So what is that? So that is all the components of business outside of, math and things like that. So, PR and management and, being able to talk to fractured processes and bring those together and communicate to leaders. And so after I graduated, I actually wanted to go into broadcasting. So I worked for an NBC. I worked for an NBC affiliate in San Luis Obispo County in California for a couple of years, KSBY. And I attempted to do some weekend reporting, but it was mostly, setting up microphones and things like that for a couple of years. And then I quickly realized that there wasn't longevity in being on camera. And so I decided to go back into retail. And then I got a job at JCPenney's. And this is going to date myself, but I ran the catalog department. So back in the day, we used to order from catalogs. And so I ran the catalog department and then was quickly recruited by Target and ran different departments there. I started out running guest services, guest experience, which is going to be the front end, all of your cashiers, Starbucks, food court, the guest experience throughout the store. Then they switched me to another store that was having some broken processes, and I worked in the hardlines department there, which is all of your electronics and sporting goods and things like that. And then they moved me to another store, and I ran the HR, so all of the seasonal hiring, yearly hiring, promotions, reviews, all of those. And then finally, I got my own store in Simi Valley, California, and ran that for a couple of years. And then my husband and I got married, and I kind of saw a fork in the road there and decided, working for a big box store did not lend itself well to a personal life. So during fourth quarter, you're typically very busy and don't get to spend the holidays with your family. And so I really wanted to commit to starting a family. And so I decided to switch and worked for the Kohler Company, which is a private company. And at the Kohler Company, I ran 2 locations in the Los Angeles area. One of them was in the Pacific Design Center, and one of them was a brick and mortar. And in those locations, it was a unique experience because it was in West Hollywood, which is a very diverse neighborhood. And I was able to kind of hone and perfect my skills in terms of management. So the management skills that I have, the leadership skills that I have, you can really put it in any area. So big box store, a private company that was selling high-end furniture, like the Kohler Company I was working for, and now for the commission. So that's really what I'm looking for, is to use these same leadership skills and processes that work very, very well and apply them to the county. So after we had our first child in 2014, we decided we didn't want to raise kids in Los Angeles. So my husband and I, we moved to Utah for a couple of years and then ended up back in my hometown of Klamath. And so we've been here for about 7 years. My husband is wonderful. His name is Peter. He works from home. He works for a dental software company. And I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I've been a stay-at-home mom for the past 9 years.
Going from that to running for political office, that's quite a transition. Was there a catalyst or a tipping point that made you want to do this?
Sure. So I've always been a registered Republican, and but I was what they like to call a low propensity voter. And what that means is every 2 to 4 years, you do your civic duty, you go and vote, and you just kind of wish for the best. And so it was around 2020 when I started to look into what our government was capable of doing, specifically, what does the governor do? What is, if she makes a decision, can it impact your business? Can it impact your health? Can it impact the way that you live your life daily? What does the sheriff do? What do the commissioners do? So I think that was really the catalyst that got me involved. I signed up with our local Republican Party as a precinct committee person, was then elected as secretary, and then was elected as chair. And I've been the chair for the past 2 years. So I think that would be the catalyst to get more involved, to find out who we were electing to office, how they were voting, and how they were spending our money. From there, I did have a couple interactions with the commission, and I really took a look at it and said, I feel like I'm not being represented on that board. And that really why is we have a board. So you have people that represent all different facets of our county. And so I had gone to them with some election integrity issues and felt that I wasn't being heard. And I felt like I wasn't being listened to. And so I started to look into what were the qualifications. And this is going to be very interesting. What are the qualifications to run for Klamath County Commissioner? Because it's a high-paid job. There's not really any job requirements, which is quite shocking. There's no budgetary requirements, management requirements, anything like that. You have just had to have lived here for a year. So I looked into that and I thought, you know what? I have a skill set that fits really well with what a commissioner does. And so I went home and I talked to my husband about it. We prayed about it. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna throw my hat into the ring. And it was right after Commissioner Hensley had decided to pull out of that race and run for Senate. And so that's really what kind of lined me up to do this. So I call my story as, from couch to candidate, and taking a look at it, as a citizen, as a stay-at-home mom, I thought this is my chance where I can impact the community. I can, show my children. So we've got 3 small children now that are going to Cross Point. I can show them that you can stand up and participate in local government. You don't have to have a political science degree. You don't have to be a master at all things government. You just need to be strong and confident and treat others with kindness and have a passion for representing the underrepresented, and then also for correcting issues, like budgetary oversights or personnel issues. So it was really a passion for my community and for my children to grow up in the same county I did.
You said you think you have a good skill set for this job, and you kind of also touched on it a little bit when you were talking about your retail career. But if you could outline maybe in some detail, what specific skills do you think make you a good fit for this job and how you plan to apply them?
Sure. And so I spent much of my career recruiting, hiring, promoting other leaders. So this is a specialty of mine. I have excellent communication skills. I am able to bring together fractured groups and get them to work together. They don't necessarily need to agree on everything, but we all need to work together, especially in this county. I have exceptional interpersonal skills. I have worked on small and large budgets. So the Target store that I ran in Simi Valley was a $50 million a year store, and it was an overnight logistics process with over 200 employees. So here in Klamath County, we have, under the county government, 27 departments with 24 department heads. So I spent the summer attempting to meet with every department head. I only made it to about 15. And so it just shows you how vast our county is. And then with over 400 employees, my experience and education really lends itself well to the position. I have the experience with budgets, with people, and with communication. And communication is going to be key to fixing a lot of the problems in this county.
So this is a question from one of our Facebook followers. Mm-hmm. Given that the position you are running for is nonpartisan, how do you balance your lifelong ideological views in order to fairly represent all voices and views in Klamath County? And what steps have you taken to demonstrate yourself as a fair and balanced candidate for commissioner?
That is an excellent question, and it's come up quite often. And the best example I have is, in my management experience in the 3 largest companies I've worked for, I've been in management since high school, since I was 17 years old. So in the three big companies I've worked for, particularly at the Target stores and then at the Kohler stores, I had a wide variety of employees, management, living in, working with folks in West Hollywood. It's a highly diverse area. Nobody knew I was Republican. Not one. I never talked about politics. I never impressed my views on them. I was able to lead and be respectful and be supportive and be encouraging and course correct when I needed to without involving politics.
Going off of fairness, there have been multiple instances of ethics issues, both in Klamath County and around the state as a whole over the past few years. Describe your personal ethics and how you think the public should hold you accountable to them.
Sure. And when you're talking about ethics issues in the county and the state, is that particularly related to something, or is that just government?
Government mainly.
Okay, great. So I'm a highly ethical person. So I'm a born again Christian. I have committed my life to Christ. I live to replicate the life that he had. And I know that not everyone's Christian. I'm no way in implying that they should be, but I'm saying when you hold yourself to a higher moral standard, and when you also have 3 children that are looking up to you, you have to lead by example. And so in my background in HR, it is critical to treat all people with respect, regardless of whether they agree with me or not. So I've reached across the aisle. I have a great relationship with the Democratic chair, Jean Lamb. I think she's a very kind person. I'm able to talk to anybody in the community about their issues and work to get them results. So growing up, Matt, Republicans and Democrats mixed all the time. And there wasn't much daylight between us. There was, we all loved our country. We all wanted to be successful and healthy. We cared about having a strong and safe community. We all wanted the same things. In this day and age, we've become quite divisive, but I think in a small community, we can pull it back together if you have the right person in the position to communicate that.
What specific measures would you take to fight corruption in government as a county commissioner?
Excellent. So I'm going to go back to my communication piece. So I plan on disclosing with the community weekly what my actions are. At this point, I don't have control over the other 2 commissioners, so I can only speak to myself. And that's again by leading by example. So each week I plan on disclosing how I voted, what the money was spent on, giving the information to educate the public so they have the power, because they are the shareholders in this business that is Klamath County. And they should have the information of how their elected officials are working. I mean, it's a high-paying job, Matt. It's $87,000 a year starting. That's double what the median income is for Klamath County. You darn sure should be acting ethically. Your schedule should be transparent. You should be available to the public and be accessible.
Going off of that, overall, how do you view your role and responsibility as a commissioner? In other words, what do you see as a commissioner's scope of actual influence, and what are you hoping to accomplish within that scope?
Sure. So it's a multifaceted thing. So you have the things that you have direct influence over. So budgetary. So, yesterday I was talking about the sheriff's office. So we have direct control over how much money is allocated to the sheriff's office, which is the number one issue I'm hearing throughout the county is safety. From Chemolt to Blymountain to Chiloquin to here in downtown, it's safety. So there's a direct, impact to the budget. But then there's other issues that you don't directly impact, but you can be an advocate for. So, for example, water issues. Unfortunately, it's a state and federal issue. There's not much the commission can do about it. But I already have an existing relationship with our state legislators who have endorsed my campaign. And with that pre-existing relationship, if there is an issue, I can advocate that at the state level. And so I think it's a 2-pronged approach, what you can impact here locally. And obviously I will do that with open and honest communication, holding myself to a high standard, ensuring folks have the information that they need to make the decisions, making sure that I allow the space for those 24 department heads to do their job. That's key too. I don't want to micromanage anybody. So if we've taken the time and effort to hire these experts in their fields, we should allow them the space to do their job. So that's from sheriff to library to museum to public works. These are the experts in their fields, and a lot of them have been there for decades. And so, in the event that something needs to be course corrected, you would step in. But what an opportunity to learn from people who have decades of experience.
So what are your day one priorities? What are the first things you're going to try to get done when you're in office?
When I get back from training, you mean? So I don't know if everyone knows that. So there is a commissioner training. There's commissioner school. that you go to. And like with any other job, there needs to be that introductory probationary period. So, anyone, so for example, whoever's going to step into the sheriff role, whoever steps into the commissioner role, there is that introductory period. And so I just want people to understand this. It's like a regular job. There's training involved. After that, I would first like to implement the communication piece. It's very simple. I know it sounds a little silly, but I think it will be effective. Again, I think communication is our biggest problem here. There's a huge disconnect with what happens at the government center and what the public knows. So I would start with weekly YouTube status checks and what we're doing. I would like to carve out some money in the budget to hire an information resource officer. I was just speaking about the 24 wonderful department heads. Not all of them are great communicators. So we could take the information that they have, run it through our information communication officer, and they would be able to speak to the public. And I think that in that way, we can make the information, because sometimes government can be overwhelming, making it easily digestible for the public, so they are able to be a part of the solution. So I think that, day one, it doesn't have to be complicated. I don't think you need to swoop in here with some big plan. Honestly, I think that the public looking at kind of the revolving door of the commission when it comes to these positions, you have people coming in with really big ideas, and I think they're really enthusiastic, and nothing ever happens. So let's start small. Let's start with the people. Let's start on mending those relationships with the community that have been damaged by infighting and departments suing each other. That needs to stop. There needs to be a strong relationship between the commission and the sheriff's office. So things, I think mending relationships and my interpersonal, communication skills will work well with that.
Klamath County has had the second fastest growing GDP in Oregon over the past 5 years. It has outperformed 34 of the 35 other counties. How do you intend to help continue spurring growth, or at least not being a barrier to success?
Sure. I just read that article too. That was pretty good news. We'll take it. Good news. I think one thing I would like to address when it comes to economic growth is, instead of focusing on bringing like a big business here, which yes, we could use, why don't we focus on keeping our young people here? And the reason I say this is because I grew up here and I left. I left because there was an opportunity. So what are some things that we can do to keep young people here? Because if you're based here, if you have roots here, that is going to quickly grow the economy. But we need to take a look at things like, affordable housing. After people graduate from either one of our fine institutions of KCC or OIT, is there housing, or are they going to have to move home with mom and dad? So there's little things like that need to be addressed. I feel, instead of coming up with another big government program, we can start to whittle away at things. Are we maybe charging too much for permits? Are we maybe making it more complicated to do business here? We need to be easy to do business with. Mm-hmm.
You've talked a little bit about some of the other entities in town, the sheriff's office, you might have mentioned the library, museums, fire districts, a lot of these unique sort of special district type programs with their own unique governance parameters. And I want to go in a little more detail there, because in the past, it seems like some commissioners have had a hard time understanding how those entities function in relation to the government itself. So
Right.
What's your understanding of that history, and how do you think a commissioner should interact with those groups?
So I would recommend every elected official reads the Constitution. In the case of, and I'll just use as an example, the sheriff's office. The sheriff is the highest elected official in this county, elected by the people, and as such should be given the space, much like the other 23 department heads, the space to do his job. I think treating each other with mutual respect. I think constant communication between the departments. I think that in the case of the other department heads, attending their board meetings. So as I was talking to the department heads this summer, the same kind of issues or maybe concerns kept popping up. And one of them was there isn't a consistent commissioner presence at all of their meetings. It doesn't have to be every single one, but just checking in. with the meetings. I know that I've gone to planning commission meetings and there was nobody there. I know that there have been statewide commissioner association calls and Klamath wasn't represented. So we have to start by showing up. Yeah.
Talking about agencies, this is based on another Facebook question. How would you handle a situation where a citizen of Klamath County is in conflict with a federal agency and is looking to the local government for help?
Could you give me an example?
They didn't really provide one.
Okay, say the question again.
How would you handle a situation where a citizen of Klamath County is in conflict with a federal agency and is looking to the local government for help?
Got it. So that would be that would go back to the advocacy I was talking about. And then for me personally, in areas where I am a little bit more weak, let's say like ag and water, I would have an advisory board there to help me. So I think being a conduit between that citizen and the, let's say, state or federal government, being an advocate, being a consistent communicator, all of these things can help. I think oftentimes getting caught up in, I don't know if it's a legal issue that they're talking about, but getting caught up in these, sometimes you just need an additional person outside of the problem to put pressure on that. And so, I love sticking up for the underrepresented. I love sticking up for those, because I felt like I was an underrepresented. And that's why I'm running. So I have a special place in my heart for those that feel like they're not being heard by their government. So I would be a strong advocate for them.
Another Facebook question. What is your plan with funding for the sheriff's office to help them bring in recruits and be competitive with wages?
Sure. So I think the first thing that we have to do, let's take a step back and let's take a look at that $274 million budget. That is a lot of money. You can't tell me somewhere in that budget we can't trim some fat. So that would be my first plan of action, is to see where we can trim. Then we need to take a look at, because I was also speaking to the DA and he's having similar issues as well. So if we're looking at law and order as being top issue along with the economy, at least on the little interviews I've been doing, you have to take part in not only the sheriff's office, but the DA, and taking it to the people. I don't, I'm not a proponent for additional taxes, but is it something that there needs to be a levy that comes out? I don't know. That's something that needs to be put together with them. But right now, the sheriff's office is getting, I believe, $13 million of property taxes and another $2 million on top of that. So that's $15 million. But just like in our own homes, the price of everything is going up. Price of gas, price of doing business, price of materials, minimum wage, everything's going up. So that needs to be addressed as well.
I want to talk a bit about disaster readiness. This has been the worst wildfire season in recorded history by the number of acres burned in Oregon. There have been several fires either in or very close to Klamath County, including one recently near Chiloquin that destroyed 8 homes.
Yes.
How would you help ensure that the county government is not only prepared to manage these fires as they happen, but also prepared to assist residents who are adversely affected by them?
Sure. And I did have a chance to meet with Ian from Emergency Management, and he's doing an excellent job. I know he's just been here a couple of years. And so, between meeting with him and meeting with Rhonda Nysas from the state level, I think they've got some good plans in place. But I think ultimately what we need to do is taking a look at the kind of the history behind that. It's the Copperfield fire? Copper... The one by, I think that's what it was called.
Yes.
Copperfield fire. Taking a look at that one. So do we have the right teams in place? So I know that a week prior they had let go their fire captain. I still don't know the details around that. But that right there could, be impacting morale as well. So we have to look at it from a personnel perspective. Then we also need to put pressure on the state and federal governments to clean up these forests. I mean, just driving around some of these areas, it's their tinder boxes waiting to blow up. When I grew up here, we didn't have a fire season. Occasionally there'd be a little campfire that got out of control or something. Now it's a multi-million-dollar industry. When we have firefighters coming from out of state, sometimes out of the country to help. with these fires. It shows that there is a disconnect somewhere. So maybe returning back to properly managing the forests, abating the fires. But at that point, you really have to be an advocate because, again, the position as commissioner, you don't have much control over that. But what you do have control over is how it's operated at the local level, and then ensuring that you keep a tight relationship with the great team over at emergency management. Getting the communication out, that's where that key component of an information officer would help as well.
Droughts have also been an issue in Klamath County in recent years. I know you said ag wasn't necessarily one of your strong points, but how do you think the county government should help farmers and ranchers make sure they have their needs met during those dry periods?
Well, to be honest, the water issue isn't about water, it's about people. People have made these decisions at the federal and state level, and they've impacted our local farmers. The water is there. The water is there. It's just not being properly allocated. So, even though water and ag isn't my strong suit, I'm spending a lot of time learning it. Because I want to be able to speak intelligently about this. So I would say, again, my strong relationships with the state legislators. I'm going to be, I have a surprise endorsement coming up, and it's somebody that has direct ties to the federal government that would be able to help us. I know Cliff Bentz very well, and he could be a proponent for us in Congress as well. And so as a commissioner, again, you don't have a lot of ways to move the needle on that one. But you do through advocacy. And I go back to the same thing before. Communication, putting pressure on these people, follow up.
One more question from Facebook. How do you plan to help the outlying communities in the county that feel their concerns are unheard or ignored?
I love these people. So they are the salt of the earth folks. I've spoken to folks up in Gilchrist and Chemolt and Crescent and Bly Mountain and Chiloquin and Sprague. And the number one issue that I hear from all of them is law and order. Everything from squatting to petty crime, theft, to violence. I mean, this summer we saw 2 murders, 2 attempted murders. So nothing else can happen if folks don't feel safe. No one's going to bring a business in. No one's going to move their family in if they don't feel safe. And so that has to be addressed, number one. So working closely with the new sheriff to ensure that these outlying areas have, whatever the options are going to be. Maybe it's an officer assigned to that area. Maybe it's, hiring additional patrol. So I think establishing those relationships and being an advocate for them and getting it in front of people. People tend to just worry about what's directly around them. But you have to understand, we've got, 6,000 square miles? We're one of the biggest counties, and that all needs to be policed properly.
Those are all the questions we had. You get the final word. Is there anything else that you want to tell voters before they fill out their ballots?
I would like to tell you, and this is from a hiring manager's perspective, to really weigh the candidates not only on work experience and education, but also who do you feel comfortable going to? Who do you feel comfortable going to with your issues and that you feel will be an advocate for you? I think that, taking a look at these interviews, mybasin.com, very much thank you for doing this, but really analyzing, is that personality going to jive well with the personalities that are currently in the government? Is that person going to be an advocate for me? When I go to speak to her at one of the commissioner meetings, is she truly going to listen, or are we just checking boxes? So, this is a unique opportunity. You've got, one great candidate and one okay candidate that's running, and I think that there's an opportunity to pull from that the best possible commissioner. And it's a really exciting time because think about it. Now we are voting for the commission, which is the purse, and then the sheriff, which is law and order. Two positions that could change the trajectory of this county. So vote wisely and vote for Rejeana Jackson, Klamath County Commissioner, position 1. Thank you.